So, everybody, welcome. This is interview with Jaime Leverton of HODLing Mining, CEO, newly appointed last December. So, thank you for joining us. We're gonna, I guess, get right into this. But first, Empire Building is pleased to be able to offer viewers of this channel sign-up bonuses for opening a brand new account with Webull. Just click the link in the description below and start the process to open your account with Webull, and you'll receive 2 free stocks, one valued at up to $250 for opening your account, and the second valued at up to $1,600 after you fund your account with $100 or more. You'll also enjoy commission-free trading, pre- and post-market hours trading, and free contract fee and zero-cost options trading. In addition, when applicants transfer from other brokerages to Webull, applicants will be able to get a transfer reimbursement of up to $100. And with that, let's get back to the video. One of the first questions that sort of has been on my mind is, Bitcoin in general. Obviously, it's everyone kind of has their first exposure, their first impressions of the technology, blockchain in general. I have my own story, my own sort of origin story in Bitcoin, but I was curious to know a little bit about yours. I heard a little bit in the podcast you had done. I don't know when that was, maybe last week, but recently been aired.
I don't know. The Rockstar, the one with Rockstar?
No, this was the one with the guy that was involved with Validus.
Oh, Validus. Yeah. The Rockstar one.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Your life, your terms.
Yes, that's the one.
That's it. Yeah.
It was very good.
Oh, thank you. Greg's great. Very colorful.
Yeah.
But really, really understands the space better than anyone else from both a Bitcoin side and then, obviously kind of thinking to the future. He's very impressive.
Well, he's obviously passionate about it. Come across, it is one that he has very strong opinions on, and like most of us do. I mean, try and find someone who's passionate about Bitcoin that doesn't hold strong opinions.
Yeah, that's right. It's it goes with the territory for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, when I got into this, my first interaction, or first when I first heard about it, it was because the architectural firm that I was working with had their systems hacked, and their ransom was 1 Bitcoin. I think they were looking for. Maybe it was 3 Bitcoin. I can't remember what it was. But at the time, I remember thinking, what is a Bitcoin? And then I found out, it's just some internet money, and I assumed it was just something used by hackers, and it was worth $3,000 at the time. This was in 2017. And I'd never heard of it.
Beginning.
Yeah, I'd never even heard of it before that. So I was really late to the party. And then I ignored it after that. Heard about it again when it was approaching the $20,000 mark. And I'm like, what the heck is this thing? So I actually took some time to dig into it. And then that's when you get pulled right into the rabbit hole. And Bitcoin, blockchain, and I was hopeless after that. I didn't stand a chance.
Yeah, I totally understand. Had a very similar experience. For me, it was during that cycle, the 2017 cycle, when Bitcoin started to run, and we started. I was working at Cogeco Pier 1 at the time as the general manager for Canada and Asia Pacific, and our phone just started ringing off the hook. People looking for space and power at scale, serious scale. And I was like, what is happening? What is driving all this demand? And so then I went down the rabbit hole. I read Blockchain Revolution by our own Don Tapscott. And I think it was the combination of kind of the excitement in the industry and then that book, which really kind of crystallized the optimism behind it and the the real revolutionary nature of this technology and the possibility to transfer wealth in a truly meaningful way. And you know, when I was exposed to the possibility of banking the unbanked by using Bitcoin, I was hooked. For me, that was what did it. And then I seriously explored opportunities in this space back in 18, and ultimately I just felt like it was too new. It was too volatile. It was so early in the cycle that I didn't make the leap. I stayed in the traditional data center space, and then when I was called about this opportunity late last summer, and kind of went all the way back down the rabbit hole, and Michael Saylor had just made his trade. I just thought it's too good an opportunity. You know, there's this powerhouse set of assets in this company. It's a Canadian story, and I had to be a part of it, really.
I had come across a couple. I think there was one other interview I seen you with another gentleman, and I'm having a hard time remembering what it was, but I guess you were involved in some kind of a deal related to not necessarily Bitcoin, but the blockchain space.
Yeah, exactly. I think you're probably talking about Digital Bits, and an interview that I did with the founder of Digital Bits at Consensus in 2017.
Yes.
And we, at that time, Digital Bits was looking to build out a blockchain application to bring digital currency or digital tokens to the loyalty space, and
like air miles.
Yeah, but with crypto. And I think there's just I loved that idea. And so because we were a data center provider at that time, we signed a partnership to explore how we could work together, host the nodes, because ultimately the Bitcoin miners, what they were looking for didn't fit into a traditional co-location model, but blockchain could, the nodes could.
Yeah.
And they need more security, more of a traditional data center environment versus just, you know, as much power as you can apply to compute as possible.
Yeah, it's a different model. When you think, because mining you can't really attack a mining facility, you know, in any meaningful way, you know, digitally, but a data center can. And it's kind of like the difference between mining and staking, really. Like a staking node could be, you could attack that, but you can't really attack a mining, like mining infrastructure in any real, like, and actually have any effect. It doesn't really, like you said, like the nature of what you guys, the type of service you were providing isn't really conducive to mining. They don't benefit from it.
Right. They don't need the overhead associated with a traditional, you know, tier 3 or even tier 2 data center. It's because ultimately Bitcoin miners need the lowest cost power possible, as opposed to the resiliency and security that you find in a traditional data center environment.
Okay, so like you were saying, so in case you weren't, what was it that was it the introduction of Michael Saylor and the move that he made? And I guess, like, as you see, there's the institutional adoption. That seems to be what sort of tipped your hat, was seeing. For
seeing the beginning of this cycle, and like just having that moment of clarity around just how explosive this cycle was likely to be if institutions actually started to come in a meaningful way as a hedge against the inflationary pressures that are most likely inevitable thanks to the global printing of fiat currency. So that I think my friend Greg Foss referenced COVID as the needle that popped the balloon to drive this kind of mass acceleration. It was always going to come, but it's coming much faster with the backdrop of COVID. And I think that's very fair. And I think that makes this cycle potentially unique. Is this the cycle that breaks the cycles? I don't know. I wouldn't want to bet on it. Bitcoin's been very, very predictable so far in its 12-year life. So we'll see. But I'm very much a Bitcoin bull over the long run. And I fundamentally believe this is the hardest store of value the world's ever seen, and it's exciting to be able to participate in it. Whether this is the first inning or second inning, hard to say. I think we're still very early though.
Well, and it's funny. As they say, when in doubt, zoom out. But I mean, the further out you zoom, the more clearer the picture becomes. And again, when you understand the underlying potential, like you were describing, you inevitably, once you dig in, once you look underneath the surface, I find like if you're speaking to somebody, one of the first go-to things is, it's a tulip mania. Right away, I know they haven't looked under the hood. They really haven't dug into this, because once you do, you inevitably see like the potential, the possibilities. You start to imagine what this could change the world into, and what is that worth? Exactly. That's where your mind just explodes, and it's like, okay, yeah, this is like when you start to see the monumental paradigm shift that could potentially come from this, and when you really look deep, it seems inevitable. Like there's no way this doesn't happen. It's many times greater than anything we have available to us today. How would we not take advantage of that? Like we'd have to all be asleep at the wheel. So once you get past that, it's like, okay, well, this thing is crazy undervalued. Like this thing should be way higher. The only difference is that, it's still in that early adopter phase where it's clunky. It's still, it's not been finessed. It's like the internet in the early days. Like everyone said, It was a fad. Like what is it? Chat rooms. This is just like, it doesn't do anything useful. Like, okay, but the geeks were like, are you kidding me? How do you not see this?
Right. Exactly. So, that is very, very much what where we are, I think, with Bitcoin and even blockchain in general. Yeah.
So you're also touching there on the cycles, and it is the narrative that's coming. This time it's different. They said that last time too. And when you've been through a cycle, you inevitably start, especially I've only been through one. I've seen, anyone can see them by looking at the charts, the 4-year thing. It's very convincing. But you seem to be I'm sort of on the fence on this whole concept either, that maybe we're not going to see the cycles play out like we did before. And I, being a contrarian, I tend to believe that if everyone's thinking the same thing, odds are something else is going to happen.
Right. I wouldn't bet against the cycle.
Yeah.
And that's one of the strategies that we employ at Hut 8. We look at the fleet level, steady refresh, regular refresh of hardware, really not trying to time the market and expose the balance sheet in that way, because frankly we got bitten in the last cycle, and we don't want to repeat the mistakes of the past. And you can't. We all hope this cycle is different, but hope's not a strategy. Certainly not when you're running a publicly traded company. So we have to make sure that we're doing right by our shareholders, and that we are taking into balance the cyclical nature of the industry, and making sure that we are protecting the downside while building out a growth narrative at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's certainly a risk of, especially since you look at the worldwide shortage of chips and silicon cells. It's making any meaningful order that's being made. That's you're talking running well into 2022 just to get that order filled. There we go. Not sure what that was. Anyways, where were we?
Oh, just we were talking about the equipment
cycle
delivering into 2022.
Yeah.
If that equipment shows up in a bear market where hash rate has run all the way up, it's scary.
It's because then you've spent the capital. You've mentioned about this. You're going to be depreciating that equipment, and potentially not being able to profitably operate it. But again, I guess it all depends on what those cycles are going to do. And like you said, betting against that cycle is a pretty risky proposition, which is why it helps to be one of the early movers. If you guys had managed to build it out, and not only that, I mean, here's the other thing I find interesting is if the whole value proposition is to be able, you guys are the first hodlers. You hold more Bitcoin on your balance sheet, self-mined. Obviously, Mara had made a large purchase using shareholder money to acquire their HODL position. But I mean, your base cost on that is closer to 6,000 per Bitcoin.
Well, considering how long we've been mining it, probably less than that. But I couldn't tell you the hard answer.
Yeah, it's difficult to say, but I mean that nobody can take that away from you, and it's going to be pretty darn hard to sell that at a loss, or if you choose to sell it at all. And that's where it seems to be the value proposition for HUT 8 appears to be: don't rely on the Bitcoin as the sole source of income. Generate other sources that would allow you to just hold on to that Bitcoin long term.
Right.
Right. And that's kind of an unlosable strategy, provided you believe in the technology.
Yeah. Well, look, if you're not a Bitcoin bull, you wouldn't even be looking at Bitcoin miners, right? So my thesis is, if you're interested in Bitcoin miners, that's because you're a Bitcoin bull, and therefore we have a unique value proposition by the amount of Bitcoin we have on our balance sheet. Our last announcement of our balance was just over 3,000 self-mined Bitcoin on our balance sheet. We also made an announcement in January that we now earn a yield on a portion of that Bitcoin. So not only do we get the benefit of appreciation as the price runs up, but now we also have a portion of it that's used for a new revenue stream that is also pure margin, of course. And then last year we started with a hosting line of business as well. So we now have two differentiated revenue streams, both of which pay us in fiat-based currency, which allows us to pay some of our fiat-based operating expenses and therefore keep more Bitcoin on balance sheet. Because, when we first started, like everyone else in this space, we had to sell as much Bitcoin as was required to pay our operating expenses. It was the sole source of revenue. But now we're starting to introduce alternate revenue streams to help cover off some of those costs and allow us to keep more Bitcoin on balance sheet. And ultimately, as a Bitcoin miner that's long Bitcoin and has Bitcoin on balance sheet, I think we do offer something unique to investors in that we have a balance sheet that's incredibly solid, and we have some interesting avenues for downside risk protection, which we will continue to explore.
Well, that's what I very much like the direction HUT 8 is going in, and it is a little different, in terms of sort of like how you guys explore those different opportunities. Like the only ones that I know of that actually thought to borrow against your Bitcoin rather than selling it. And the other thing being, how long is it going to take, despite other miners being able to ramp up the way that they are, how long is it going to take them to mine the Bitcoin that you already have?
Yeah, that would be some interesting math to do, especially.
It is a planned video for mine.
Is it? Because the hash rate, we know the hash rate is only going to go up significantly as all this capacity
the rewards
comes
will go
online.
down.
The rewards go down every 4 years. That is also certain. Obviously, the more activity on the network means more transaction fees, and certainly over the long term, we'll see those transaction fees consistently increase. But the hash rate and the difficulty level of the network is a critical component to profitability for miners. And based on how the Bitcoin price has been moving, we know that there's a lot of interest and attention being paid to this space in a whole new way, which will ultimately lead to increased hash rate and therefore lower profitability in mining. The best time to be a Bitcoin miner is the beginning of the cycle, when the price starts to run, but the hash rate hasn't been able to keep up. That's when miners make the majority of the big profits, and then it catches up, it settles down, and then, you know, if the cycles continue to repeat, you want to be ready for the beginning of the next cycle, so that you're actively participating in this period of incredible economics.
Yeah, and that's the thing. The best time to build out is during the bear markets, not
absolutely
the bull markets.
The worst time to build out is during the bull markets.
The equipment the equipment gets more expensive during the bull markets. They're dirt cheap in the bear markets. I built up my own mining rig in the bear market, and
good for you.
I was able, I have my own little. Started out with 13 GPUs. 2 of them died. But I think I paid $300 each for those things, and that was 3 years ago. And the same miners, the same GPUs today, I could sell them for 3 times what I paid for them. I'm actually thinking about it. But I mean, I don't know how much longer they're going to last. I kind of feel a little bad if somebody bought them and they died 2 months later. But for me, again, like you were saying, it doesn't really cost me anything to continue running them, because they're paid for many times over. But I did that, and it wasn't fun during the bear market, but I looked at it as the best way to cost average, better than buying from an exchange, because I run a business. The electricity is a write-off, and it's just the ability to do it that way is just a normal, consistent method of accumulating. I had no intentions of selling it. So, but yeah, I mean, I think
good for you.
It was, and also it taught me more about the metrics of it. So because I was actively doing that myself, it meant that when I saw what was happening with the miners, and I saw what will inevitably happen when things turn around, which I was confident that they were, being a Bitcoin believer. I knew how fast things were going to change, and the way the companies were being evaluated at the time was like they're priced for bankruptcy. Like that makes no sense. So I went in pretty heavy, and as a result, I was able to multiply this to ridiculous levels, even more than I had expected at the time. And I still don't see this being anywhere near done. So
no. Again, if you have a long-term horizon. Yeah. If you're tracking the daily volatility, you'll drive yourself insane.
Yeah. Well, I try to tell people not to, again, like, I don't know what everyone gets so scared about when we the Bitcoin price retraces back to just this 21-day moving average and the sky is falling. There it goes again. For some reason, I'm going to have to switch to my other camera. Hopefully this will work.
No problem.
Oh. Not as good. I don't know why that thing is acting up like that, but we'll let it cool down.
No worries.
Okay, so I guess we'll get on to some of the other questions that Twitter wanted me to ask.
Okay.
Yeah, so the biggest one, as always, is there was one tweet put out from the official Twitter account for Hut 8. Yeah, so that was to our supporters. The team at Hut wants to let you know we are not ignoring you. We hear you. We read your comments about liquidity and uplisting. We prioritize compliance, and we'll have updates soon. Thanks for your support. So what I guess everyone is wondering, is there anything that you can tell us about Hut 8's plans here that would, I guess, it seems actively you are pursuing an uplisting, but there's not clear how much you can say about that.
We obviously we're listening to Twitter and our investors. We understand their perspective, and optionality is important to us. We are looking at a variety of different options, and when something's final, we will share it. But at this point, there's nothing more that can be said.
Fair enough. So I guess everyone's just going to have to be patient. And again, I mean, I think the opportunity's there. Me personally, I'm patient. I've been patient this long. I think that's really all that matters for investors. Is if you're gonna be in this, you got to be willing to wait, let the story play out. But okay, so one other question there is regarding the older, because you guys have been actively upgrading. Oh yeah. Of course, I knew that this wasn't going to go totally smoothly. So your older equipment that Hut 8 retires and replaces, what do you do with that?
Well, historically, we would sell it into the secondary market if there was one. But right now, all of the equipment we have is very, very profitable. So we like all of our equipment. We're thrilled that we have it all. And it's all active, it's all participating. So the secondary market would be a traditional answer, but we are looking at alternatives.
Okay. Alternatives like as far as selling it. I think me personally, I think why people are asking this is potentially they want to get their hands on some of it.
Yes, I can see that. So yeah, we don't have an answer right now, but we're exploring a bunch of different options of what the best use is for that older equipment.
Okay. So what else we got here? One of the other questions I had was Hut 8 entered the bull run with the highest hash rate of all the other mining operations. While Hut 8 has demonstrated the foresight and ability to hodl their coin, what is Hut 8 going to do to keep up with the hash wars as the other miners are expanding at a rapid rate? We already touched on this a little bit, but I guess what would your response be to that?
My response would be we need to look at the, what did you call it? The hash rate wars?
The hash wars.
The hash wars. We have to look at it from a macro perspective, and we have to look at it from a perspective of fiduciary responsibility. And we know that this market runs in cycles, and we've lived a down cycle, and we need to be prudent in how we manage through the best use of our balance sheet, the best balancing the best outcomes for shareholders in the long run, and chasing hash at the top of a bull market, we don't believe is the best path forward.
Okay. the next thing, Bitfury, it was announced recently, was merging its subsidiary Cipher Mining with GoodWorks Acquisition Corp through a SPAC with apparently some pretty aggressive plans. But it kind of begs the question a little bit as to what is the current relationship with Bitfury, since I know that you guys had sort of revised or altered the agreement that had previously been in place with them, that would allow you to also acquire miners from other sources, but also allow them to pursue other customers, because it was, I believe, exclusive previously.
It wasn't exclusive both ways. So Bitfury has always had other customers, and it's always been engaged in self-mining activities. They've been mining long before their involvement in HODLing and consistently through the full cycle. So I think the only thing new here is that it's a new public vehicle, but this has always been part of their core business. We're still on very friendly terms with Bitfury, and we are. Bitfury's been public that they, part of what they've sold of HUT stock has been to fund R&D for a new chip, and we're really excited to see where those results might lead. And we've got a lot of optimism about what could come out of that. So I think it's all a good news story. I think for our shareholders, more liquidity is something that they've been asking for. And so having more shares freely trading is in the best interest of our shareholders as well. So I see it as broadly positive.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, I mean, as far as from what I've been able to source from that, I mean, on top of that, the SPAC that they're talking about doing is going to take some time to play out, and there's risk that they're taking on their own in that regard. But I mean, SPACs are kind of the new hottest thing, and there's a whole lot of them going out. I don't think most people that jump on them necessarily know how they work. That's something I am interested in doing a video on in the near future, but I myself have to research it to get my head wrapped around the entire process. But yeah, it's certainly, when something like that happens, it does tend to raise eyebrows for sure.
Yeah, but I think generally the eyebrows being raised just don't have the full context of Bitfury's global operations and how it's all been playing out all these years. So optionality is really important for HUT. Obviously, that's why we no longer have the exclusive hardware agreement with Bitfury, but we're on incredibly friendly terms, and we're really excited for what could come next with us being strategic partners in a more traditional sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. As far as the cycles are concerned, and you being hodlers at heart, is there, I guess, what sort of strategy would you guys be employing in terms of when and if you would to take some profits from the HODL position?
Yeah, see, I do get asked this a lot, and I think it's so interesting. Our HODL position is how we survived crypto winter better than most, if not better than any. We were able to use the Bitcoin as collateral to raise capital when it was incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to raise capital through any other means. And then we were able to pay off that loan in full last month. So it's a strategy that is well supported through history, and I think most miners in this space would have been incredibly grateful had they been hodlers from the beginning and had that cushion for crypto winter as well. So I do struggle a bit with people that think we should sell down our position of Bitcoin in a bull market when it's exactly what saved us in the bear market. And with everything we see that's going on in the space, and now we're actually able to use that Bitcoin to create yield, which is a new revenue stream, and that is also unique for us in our position. And I think really that's just the beginning of the potential to generate yield and generate revenue from that balance. And I think that's a healthier long-term view of how to look at and how to use and how to maximize that Bitcoin on balance sheet while continuing to have it to leverage as it appreciates on the balance sheet and to protect in a potential down cycle.
So I guess what you're saying is the Hut 8 strategy going forward is going to be you continue to HODL, use that HODL position to utilize other revenue sources, revenue streams, which will then pay for the mining operations, allowing you to be profitable no matter what happens. And long term, you're talking 10 years out, nobody's got a HODL position like you do because you never sold it.
Exactly. Certainly not self-mined, and never say never. People could buy their way into that position, but it would be really, really difficult to self-mine your way to where we are. And keeping in mind that we're adding to that balance right now every day.
Well, I think it makes a lot of sense, especially again, especially if it's one thing to be able to, like you said, protect against that downside risk, but what if the super cycle idea rings true? What if that actually plays out? Anyone who tried to time the top by taking some off the table is going to be having a hard time figuring out how to get that Bitcoin back.
Right.
If they turn out to be wrong.
Timing the Bitcoin market, that's for gamblers.
It really is. It's a difficult thing to see, and especially when you're already in the position, like you're already built out the infrastructure and you're already strategically placed. You already have the Bitcoin that everyone's trying to get, and just like I said, I'd be very interested to see how that math plays out. Like even at say 5 exahash, how much Bitcoin would you even get in a year? I think you'd be hard pressed to get what you have now in an entire year of mining, even with that hash rate, considering the rising difficulty.
Well, that's the thing. Yeah, what you can't model it on today's hash rate. You've got to model it on the hash rate that's going to be in place when all of that equipment comes on. So what do you think that you got to model it on the hash rate a year from now, assuming that the bull market hasn't peaked yet? It will bring continued investment, which is continued hash rate. Where does it all end up? I don't know.
And the delay, as we know, even through bear markets, the hash rate continues to rise until it doesn't stop rising until the cost to mine 1 Bitcoin equals 1 Bitcoin. That's when we bottom out. It happens every single time. So when you see that difficulty rate flattening and dropping some, that tells you, and usually it happens right at the halving. You have that drop. And it was very prominent this time round. Previous times, actually, it slowed down, but it never actually really dropped. It continued to climb slowly. But I think, who knows where that price ends up this time. But, the thing I love about this stuff is it is all math, and you can self-verify it anytime you want. Just got to know how to do the math.
Right. That's it. It's the math when the variables are known is quite straightforward. Predicting into the future is almost impossible because the variables are so difficult to predict.
I have something I'm working on there. There's a sort of extrapolated algorithm that I've been working on that might be, it might get close. It basically just models all the data points from the beginning of Bitcoin's blockchain based on the difficulty and projects that into the future. And it does form a exponentially rising curve, which should be close. I don't know if it'll be perfect, but we'll see.
Well, share it with me when you've got.
So, but again, like all that, it's just data, and we'll see. I
Yeah.
mean, it's like any model; it's never going to be perfect. But I imagine if it's taking in that much data, it should be pretty close.
Well,
We'll
I
see.
can't wait to see it.
Okay, so one of the next thing that some people were asking about, and it's a pretty good question with regards to the Genesis. I guess it's not the
Yield
loan
account?
anymore, but the yield account. What sort of risks are apparent with that in terms of the capital, like the Bitcoin you actually have capitalized against that facility?
Well, I think what we looked at when making the decision of whether to open a yield account and if so with who, counterparty risk was the number one consideration. And Genesis is part of a larger conglomerate in the space, and we think that the least amount of counterparty risk exists with Genesis, and that's why we made that decision.
Counterparty risk meaning like
Meaning Genesis is the most well capitalized from the if you look at the entire holdings within that group of companies. Obviously, Grayscale Bitcoin Trust is a sister company to Genesis, and therefore we think the counterparty risk is incredibly low.
yeah, obviously they've been doing this a while, so they're pretty good at gauging this. If they were to mess this up, they would have done it already.
Well, look, we've got a long history of partnership with Genesis as well as their other sister company, Foundry, and so we really trust the organization. Incredibly financially secure, probably one of the most financially secure organizations in the space. Full stop.
And when you consider the fact, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that they themselves are hodlers. It's actually interesting
There
that
is a consistent theme.
you're coming back to that, because it does seem you sleep a whole lot better when you've got a lot of Bitcoin. It's funny how that works.
It's funny how that works indeed. Yeah, and yet I still have to defend not selling it. It's funny.
Yeah. Well, I think that'll definitely ring true. And again, when you're talking about the long-term benefit here, I mean, that goes back to everything Michael Saylor says all the time is like, it's hard enough to get it as it is. Why would you get rid of it? It's the thing that's going to save you. And in this environment, that's where, again, you go back to, this is the forces at play now. It's really this is Bitcoin's time to prove its use case, what it was created, the problem it was created to solve, or at least one of the problems it was created to solve.
Right.
It's getting its first real chance. Its first real potential to actually play that story out. There's many other stories I think to come, but right now, that's the story.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, now it's back over $1 trillion market cap yesterday.
Yeah, I don't even know what it's at right now, but I mean, it's certainly nice. We're just this close from the all-time high.
I know. I kind of check it on the hour to see if we're gonna hit that marker today or not. There's nothing like this space.
No, I now look. I have a brother who is also invests heavily in the market, and I got him into this very early, so he's very grateful. But he has a hard time seeing the numbers go up too quickly. He gets really nervous, and keeps wanting to go back into his safe haven Apple stocks and things like that. And I'm like, well, that's fine. Boring, but fine. It's just that excitement around it, and again, you got to watch that too, because that can get you in trouble too. But there's just something about it. It just it does give you a whole lot more opportunity. Like you look with a lot more optimism about the future, not just
Absolutely.
in terms of what you can make, what you can earn from it, but also just what the future is going to look like. And the more you're exposed to it, you can't help but dream about what that's going to be. And I think no one's going to get it right. Like, it's going to do things we never thought would ever come out of it. That's the stuff I'm really interested in seeing. And that's where I think miners have a unique opportunity because, again, of building up a HODL position, the resources and the tools and the opportunities that might come available. And you guys talked a little about this on that podcast. We can't even imagine what that might be right now.
Nope.
But having that Bitcoin gives you that, opens up those opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't know what it could be, but we know we want to be a part of it. And Bitcoiners by their very nature are optimists. I haven't met a Bitcoin maximalist that is a pessimist. I'd be interested to meet one because I haven't yet had the opportunity. We, as a community, are filled with hope and optimism and excitement about what the future can bring, and that's a pretty special environment to spend your time. Yeah.
Okay. Now, one of the most things I'm really excited about is the Validus. Is that how you pronounce it?
Validus, yeah.
Yeah. That when I first heard that, I was like, oh, okay, well, this is a game changer. That was cool.
We think it might well be, obviously, or we wouldn't be in exclusive talks.
Yeah, like that, like me being an engineer, living in Alberta. I mean, this is a problem that's been up for quite some time. That's why I had to do a video on it. This is cool. Like, this is, again, Bitcoin solving problems that didn't have real solutions in the past because of its very nature of being decentralized and being able to mine anywhere. All you need is a power source and an internet connection. If you could solve those two things, and power source being cheap, but I mean, what's cheaper than... Sorry, I'm going to switch back to the other camera. Should be nice and cool by now.
And sorry, I only have 2 minutes left because I've got a 4 o'clock. I need to hop on and I need 2 minutes before it.
Okay. Well, we'll wrap this up. So I guess with Validus, what do you see coming out from this in terms of like how big a role is this going to play in the general operations of Hut 8?
I don't know, Curtis. That's what we're working on.
Okay. Is it? Because I mean, the fact that you're able to utilize all this energy is just being wasted, literally just sent out into the environment, completely uncapitalized. Now able to do that because how you described it is just a alternate source of revenue. So that's still fairly vague, but I guess like you're saying, it's something that it hasn't been fully,
fleshed out.
Developed in terms of the model, but the intent, I guess, is there.
We are exploring the art of the possible.
Okay, but it's definitely exciting because, like I said, that to me, it's just cool. Everything about it, I love.
Yeah, I mean, the way the Validus guys talk about it, they talk about Bitcoin as digital energy. Because they look at it purely from an energy perspective, and if you take stranded energy and turn it into Bitcoin, therefore Bitcoin is digital energy.
Obviously, he's been involved in Bitcoin for quite some time and has access to. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they've already attempted this, at least on some scale. But them being, they're energy guys, not necessarily miners. Maybe they need someone like Hut 8 to provide that side of the equation that that they could, like you guys talked about that, he could focus on what he does best, so you guys could focus on what you do best.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I guess
there's synergies in between.
The point is, whatever's coming, we'll hear about it soon enough. Then
you will hear about it as soon as there's something I can talk about.
All right. One last thing. Oh, we didn't really get on to the last of this stuff. I wanted to talk a little bit more about your roles in STEM and women in technology. And you've obviously been a big supporter and you've devoted a lot of your own personal time to supporting women in these roles. Yeah, that I wanted to talk a little bit more about that, but we could probably spend another hour on that alone.
Yeah. I'd be happy to come back anytime and talk about the importance of attracting more women into STEM fields and creating the space for women to see themselves at the top of the house. We need girls to want technology career paths. We need girls to want to run technology companies. We want them to be able to picture themselves there. And I will continue to do everything I can to help.
Well, I think actions speak louder than words, and you've definitely had a lot of active roles in that space. It's been pretty evident. So it's definitely something.
I have 2 daughters, right? So part of my responsibility is being their mom is to make sure that anything I can do to make the world the best possible place for them to ultimately build their careers and their lives. I feel like it's my obligation to do the work.
I couldn't have put it any better. Okay, well, I guess if you must get going, we'll let you go.
I must. I'm sorry, but I'll come back anytime.
No problem. We'll do this again.
Awesome. It was great. It was so great. Thank you so much, Curtis.
Take care.
All right, we'll talk soon.